control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today I'll be covering an anthology series from the early 2000s called Night Visions. Now, this only ran for one season. It is credited for being in 2001 and 2002, though it first aired in 2001. The reason for that was it was first aired on Fox and they didn't quite know what to do with it. They showed only 10 of the 13 episodes, I believe, and I could have this slightly wrong because there's a sort of, it's got a mixed lineage, this one. But they showed, there were 3 episodes that unaired. So they showed some, and then I believe the Sci-Fi Channel picked it up and showed it again the next year, but with the 3 intact episodes, and also a contrived extra episode which was cut from some other movie or some other show they did and labelled as Night Visions. Yeah, okay, so this one has a very Twilight Zone feel. It's hosted by Henry Rollins, of all people. Now, Henry Rollins is, it has to be said, Henry Rollins is very wooden in this. He kind of looks, he's got a rabbit in the headlight look, which really doesn't suit Henry Rollins. It's kind of hard to explain. It just doesn't quite work. He was into it. He liked the quality of the scripts and only agreed to it once he saw them. And he thought it was a good piece of work. And I agree with him. It is. I can see why he signed up. However, apparently the original show producers didn't want to host. They wanted a voiceover, but they didn't want to host. But the people who paid the bills wanted a host, and they wanted someone kind of hip. And Henry Rollins fit the ticket. Now I've badmouthed Henry Rollins a bit. I have to say, I've seen him in some other stuff, and he's fantastic. If you want to see a great Henry Rollins performance, try digging out He Never Died, a movie that's on Netflix, I believe. It's really good. He's really good in it. Anyway, back to this particular show. So it aired, as I say, over 2001, 2002. Each show comprised of 2 particular stories, so basically 26 segments, and their running time was about 43 minutes, so like 20 minutes a segment, something like that. Mostly horror, supernatural, or something, people with a bad side to them, and it filmed in Vancouver. Apparently they wanted Henry, the Fox wanted Henry Rollins to actually play a recurring role in The X-Files, but it kind of transitioned into hosting this show. And apparently there are several segments in this show which are very X-Files-like, and yes, the ones I watched were kind of X-Files-like, actually, and did remind me quite a lot of The X-Files. So yeah, I can kind of see it. The later X-Files, certainly. It was co-created by Billy Brown and Dan Angel, and I believe they certainly wrote the first segment. I haven't got a credited list here, so I can't tell you for sure. But I do remember from the titles they certainly wrote the first segment. And each segment looks like it was directed by a different individual. Some actors did some of the segments, like Brian Dennehy and Bill Pullman directed some of the segments. But we also get Joe Dante, which is always did a couple, which is nice. Joe Dante's pretty awesome. And Joe Beth Williams actually directed one, which is kind of interesting. And Toby Hooper. So there's some quality stuff going on in here. Okay, so let's get to the first segment. The first segment was called The Passenger List, directed by Yves Simoneau. First aired on July the 12th, 2001, as did the second segment. Now, this one involved a sort of an airline safety official who investigates crashes, just being in the vicinity of a crash. And I think he says he witnessed it, so he just turns up there without being officially asked to. However, it is still his job. That's fine. It's just he was happy. It was a weird coincidence that he was nearby. And he starts to investigate. He sees certain things in the wreckage, like certain type of shoes and certain photographs and things like that. And then he slowly starts to think maybe his daughter was on the plane and she's killed, she's dead. That's what it starts to really terrify him and really get to him. And certain weird things happen. For example, he starts interacting with a woman, starts a relationship with a woman who she says her husband and child were in the crash, or children, but it seems to be a physical relationship straight off the off, or at her behest. He kind of tries to resist, but then goes along with it. In the meantime, there's in the reporting and the checking the wreckage, they seem to find an extra body, so they're trying to work out what on earth's going on. And he starts to suspect it's his daughter, who would have flown under his pass and therefore may not have had documentation. Therefore, that might be explained why there's an extra person, which sounds unlikely, but that's the kind of premise. And as it goes, it kind of gets weirder and weirder, and we're getting almost like a Jacob's Ladder, unreliable narrator kind of vibe to it. It's played by Aidan Quinn, is the main character in it. And he does a pretty good job. In fact, the whole thing is pretty quality. They're filming in the woods with lots of trees. So it's, in the American sort of Midwest, or not Midwest, sorry, in the northern sort of territories. And therefore it's very reminiscent of the X-Files. There's often scenes of them in the woods, this type of woods here. And the film stock even looks the same. And his look is kind of conforms to the X-Files too. Long coats and stuff like that. And all the whole vibe, in fact, is musical cues and background music is very X-Files, so it's kind of interesting. This one. I don't want to talk too more about this episode because it's one that you need to see for yourself, and I'll try and suggest you try and dig it out. I don't know where, but this is a pretty good one. This passage is a good story. The ending is ambiguous, but kind of know what's gone on. So, yes, I like this one a lot. I like the fact his memories kind of merge with, his interactions with people start to merge with what he first saw when he first encountered the crash. So there's stuff like that. And there's quite a weird twist halfway through as well, which is pretty cool. The second story is called The Bokor. Now, the Bokor apparently is a voodoo priest turned bad. Most they sell in this story that voodoo priests are generally benign. They're helpful to their community, but sometimes one will turn bad, and it's called a Bokor. And it's about medical students who have dissection to do, and the body that turns up has got a tattoo on his forehead of a Bokor, and one of the girls, Samantha Mathis is in this one. She plays this girl who recognises what it is. Don't take that off. It has, that's a tattoo put on to help control him to make sure he stays dead. And also this guy has got a weird expression on his face. His lips look all weird, like almost like, I don't know, it looks a bit like his face has been pushed into a hot air dryer, or a vacuum cleaner has been pushed in his mouth. It's a really weird looking thing. It's really hard to explain. And we also find out one of the guys they've talked about was caught, medical students was caught stealing drugs, and they kind of caught him but didn't shop him, but they know about it. But they said, "But we'll never tell anyone." And she's like, "But you just told me." It's just like that. Anyway, it's kind of a tale of setup and revenge and nasty stuff going on. Samantha Mathis is pretty good in this, I have to say. I've seen her recently in bizarrely enough, the movie Super Mario Brothers. She plays Daisy in that, and I've seen her in a few other things. She was quite good in a drama called Jack and what was it called? Jack and Sarah with Richard E. Grant. I saw it years ago. She was pretty good in that, and I've seen her in a few other things. I think she was the love interest in Broken Arrow, for example. She was pretty good in this, and it's kind of, as the plot unfolds, things weren't quite what we expected, and there's kind of bluffing and conning going on, it's about her relationship with this guy, and what they're doing to sort of hide stuff to help him. Possibly, he's not that trustworthy. There's stuff like that going on. It's kind of a deep, dark tale. It is very X-Files, and this one was directed by Keith Gordon, who did also direct a few other episodes. Solid power story. I don't want to say any more than that. Solid power story is really worthwhile. Very pleased I watched this one. I certainly recommend Night Visions, and from what I've read of other people's reviews, the series continues in the same level of quality. So it seems to me a pretty solid anthology series. Night Visions, as I say. So if you can possibly check it out, I would recommend it. I think it's going to actually turn into something really rather good, actually, for the whole run. And if anyone does watch it and wants to let me know. I'm happy to take feedback about this kind of thing, to sort of let other people know. Okay, I think that one's out there. So thank you. And may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to